welcome to another episode of Friend Outdoors.
On today's episode, it's the opening day of our spring turkey hunting season, and we have roosted a gobbler, but there are some hens in the area. We have noticed a group of turkeys with several big gobblers showing up in this field throughout the day. We have decided to move in and set up our blind before daylight. As dawn approaches, we hear some toms gobbling in the area. Eventually, the turkeys fly down, we make a few calls, and the waiting game begins. As we hear some hens have already joined the tom. We can only hope that eventually they will show up in the field as they usually do. Here's what happens. As we are sitting in the blind waiting, I notice these two jakes are sneaking down this logging road coming in behind us. These two jakes are trying to figure out why these decoys won't move. Eventually, these two jakes lose interest with our decoys and make their way back down into the timber.
We've had two jakes in here. They just left, went out the road, went in behind us. There's a big gobbler right over the hill behind us, but he's got hens with him. Eventually, he's going to show up. I can still hear them jakes if they're walking.
Eventually, this group of turkeys have made their way up into the far end of this field. After about 30 minutes, this group of turkeys starts making their way in our direction. Things are starting to look good. As these turkeys close to about 90 yards, they really start to put on a show. If you look closely as this gobbler struts, he'll turn his tail toward the hen that he's trying to impress. This flock of turkeys has closed the distance to about 60 to 65 yards now.
Okay, here's a recap of today's hunt. On this particular hunt, I went out the night before. This was the opening day of the spring turkey season. So I went out and roosted some turkeys for the next morning. I'd heard this gobbler. I knew, had a really good idea of where he was at, but unfortunately I heard several hens in the area and they weren't very far from him. Throughout the preseason, I'd go out and I'd scout. I'd always catch them in this field. So eventually I knew that they would show up in this field. And of course they did. But I felt like he was going to have hens with him anyway. So eventually, once they showed up in the field, you saw he just strutted around. At times he would go after those two jakes. He'd push them around. At other times he'd just act like, okay, whatever, you're with me. I really thought he'd run them off. But as they kept getting closer, I'm like, man, this is pretty good footage. I felt like I was able to capture. Eventually the bird worked into about 60 yards or so. He was still strutting and coming closer. The good and the bad of the decoys. Early season, you know, I like using decoys anyway. It distracts the turkeys. But if you get a group of turkeys like that and you give them more time, the more time they have to look at those decoys, they can figure out that they're not moving and something's right. That something is not right with it, and they would be hesitant to come in. But this particular group, he was just strutting and following them. Eventually, the bird probably got to about 45 to 50 yards. I told Dad that go ahead and take the shot. I felt like I had it. It was, you know, we were reaching out there a little bit, but I felt like we could get it. At the time, I didn't know this, but he was like, oh, let's just wait. You know, we can get him tomorrow. We'll get him later in the week. And again, at the time, I didn't know this, but what had happened is Dad had got a real bad dizzy spell, and he just couldn't focus, and he didn't want to shoot. And I applaud him for that. I didn't know that at the time. I was like, come on, shoot this thing. Again, I was boxed in with camera gear, the way we were set up, because it was opening day. So eventually the bird went off over the hill, and that was that. But it was early, so I felt like we was going to get another opportunity. But that's why we didn't take the shot here. He was out there. It was borderline if we should shoot or not. We have got him that far before. But when it's the opening day, you know, these turkeys haven't seen humans yet or anything really. They were still pretty calm. So that's what happened on this hunt. Again, we hope you enjoyed it. I thought the footage was still pretty good, pretty clear. It was interesting to watch him strut around that harem and just follow him around. So we want to thank you for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please hit that thumb up like button. We really appreciate it. Think about subscribing to our channel. Again, it doesn't cost you anything. It just helps our channel to grow. Also, we want to thank our military personnel. Thank you for your service. Also on this channel, again, we have a lot of short videos underneath the shorts tab of a lot of different animals. We hope you'll give those a chance and check them out. We really think you'd like it. Now for a preview of an upcoming episode on Friend Outdoor Adventures.